Hailing from the city of Mumbai, our guest here today comes from a family of athletes and sports shooters. She was the first Indian pistol shooter to receive the world rank number 1 and has made India very proud that way. She's the first one to also win the gold medal at the ISSF World Cup at the 10-meter air pistol event. If one were to begin to read all of her accolades and medals, I think we would be here for a very, very long time because she's someone who's made India very proud on several world forums. So thank you so much for what you have done for the country, ma'am. And you're also a recipient of the Arjuna Award for shooting. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You're an inspiration to a lot of young people, and I'm very excited to be conversing with you today.
Thank you.
And it is, and I think it is and I think it's truth, and I think it's truthful to say that you're one of the Navratans of Indian shooting. And I would like to formally welcome you to our Classrooms to Career series. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank you.
you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. I think I'd like to get us started by asking where it all began. You pursued pistol shooting while also pursuing dental surgery. So can you tell us a little bit of how it all began, how you pursued these two careers together?
I always wanted to be a doctor as a child. I was never into sports. Sports just happened to me. And I loved reading books and loved medicine and biology as a child and just wanted to be a doctor. But towards my 11th or 12th standard, I was studying too much, and I thought, why not start something as a hobby? And like you said, I come from a family where shooting and guns is something that I grew up with, and I thought that shooting sort of is an easy sport that I can just stand and shoot. I wouldn't have to put in so much effort like the other sportsmen. So it's sort of, I started it as a hobby to give me some time off of my studies. But then I slowly started winning medals, started performing at the district level, then state level, then national level, and that sort of motivated me um, to go on, and I realized how good I was. But at the same time, I was studying, uh, doing my graduation in dentistry. By then, I was selected into a college. I was studying while shooting at the same time. I went to my first Olympics even before I had graduated. So it was sort of tough at that time, but I had to do a lot of juggling and time management. But it all paid out well. I finished my graduation, and after that, I decided that shooting is something I really love, and there's no point doing half and half of both because both of these
True.
careers are very demanding. And in order to be the best in the world, I really need to put in much more effort. So, yeah. So then I picked up shooting and never practiced dentistry. I
Wonderful.
finished my graduation and never practiced.
Okay. But that actually leads me to my next question quite nicely. My next question was a lot of times young people, we're discouraged from pursuing, our passions or more non-academic passions while pursuing things like, say, even if it's a medical degree or otherwise. A lot of times we're discouraged from pursuing two paths at once and are encouraged ki first study and then all of this, if it's meant to be, it will happen. So did you have to go through that dilemma of choosing at times? Like you said, you had to, of course, put in a lot of effort to do both of these at the same time. So when you made this pivot, was there a lot of support that you got? And were there times when, like, what were the sort of hardships while juggling these two careers?
There is, we live in a country where sports is still, sports as such is supported a lot by the government and the federations, and there are a lot of sponsorships for athletes who are doing well today. But at the same time, um, if you don't do well in sport, or after your sporting career gets over, one has to be ready for that time
Hmm.
because not everybody is a cricketer. You have to have financial stability. Medals are good, accolades
True.
are good, but at the same time, a sports person has a very limited career. Even today, a lot of people tell me कि आपने किसी की सीट खराब कर दी dentistry में. So people don't understand that while I was studying dentistry, I didn't know that I would be this good in shooting. And while I had to make sure that I was taking care of myself financially at that time while pursuing something that I was passionate about. That's what I had to do. And after I was done with it, I could now, step out and follow my dreams, feeling a little bit braver that I have taken care of my financial stability and my education, and I haven't left it midway.
Mm.
So, living in this country, the youngsters, I would definitely tell them to take up sports, follow your passion. But at the same time, it's not that it is either or. It can always be an and. And today, while I was growing up, we didn't have so many fields that one could look at of specializing or following their dreams
Correct.
or educating themselves. Today, there are so many fields out there that you can really pursue your studies, be it online courses or offline courses, and also study at the same time. I mean, I picked up medical, which is very tough because we have to be there and treating patients and getting a hands-on experience while doing it. And I did shooting along with it. So it's not either or. So it should definitely be an and honestly, one would think that dentistry may not have helped me, but after studying human body so deeply, I could easily apply that knowledge to what I was doing in sports and take care of my injuries, take care of my body, and understand the balance, the stability. So, no education is ever lost. You can
Correct.
always find a way of using it. Yeah, so it should be an and situation, education and sports. And actually, this is something government should also look into because um, colleges and schools are the best place where sport can really thrive because there are so many youngsters. The youth is out there. They spend the most of their time in schools and colleges. And if schools and colleges do give them an opportunity to try out as many sports as possible, then we might reach
True.
sort of the grassroots that we want to reach. So it's not just the individual, the support has to come from the institutions as well. The teachers, I remember my teachers were not that supportive. My principal was very
Mm.
supportive while I was studying, but my teachers used to give me a tough time. The way they used to question, I used to feel that they're questioning everything I know, and I go through
Yeah.
extra grind compared to the other students. So the support has to come from the institutions, the teachers, the tutors, everybody. So a sports person who's trying to do sports for the country and study at the same time is putting in so much more effort than anybody else. I'm
True.
not going to parties. I'm not going to see movies or birthday parties like
Correct.
my other friends. I'm using all that time that I have. So one should respect athletes who are also trying to pursue their education.
Right, ma'am. Thank you so much. And I don't think there's a better time to welcome Ms. Soumya Agarwal, COO at Rishihood University. Thank you so much for joining us today, ma'am.
Thank you.
I think this is the perfect moment to ask you the question as well, since we were talking about educational spaces. I'd like to also get your inputs on the same question, which was, within educational spaces also, for students to pursue multidisciplinary activities is still largely discouraged in India. So I also wanted to know what, you're doing different at Rishihood, like ma'am was also talking about, to encourage and sort of create a space where young athletes who want to pursue sports can also practice their passion for sports while maintaining, their educational and academic goals.
Right. Thank you, Heena, for sharing your thoughts. And I agree completely when you said that education and sports should be completely integrated. While I'd like to take a step forward to this, education and sports should not be seen as two separate identities. Education and sports should combine, we should combine it together. as something which leads to a holistic development of the student or of the child who's going through everything. You can teach them English, maths, science, whatever, whatever. But if they don't go through the sports, it's everything is incomplete, and there is so much more that sports offer, and I'm sure we'll touch upon that as well in the continuous discussion. When it comes to Rishihood, very rightly said, we've integrated, just like I said, we've integrated everything. Just like you have a credit course on psychology, you have a credit course in computer science, there is also a credit course on sports. So it sort of becomes compulsory for the students to go through like a sports activity. Plus, we also understand that education is incomplete if you're not experiencing what it is to thrive your physical, body, make it come out to your comfort zone, work with the team, understand what it is to win, what it is to lose. So it's very important for a holistic development of a child or a student here, and that is why it's like a part of our curriculum. It's an integral part of our curriculum, and it's a compulsory subject that everybody has to go through. And it's also not something that we are not offering too many sports as an option. We come from a state of Haryana, that's where we are situated, and Haryana is famous for sports. So if you have an educational institute, you have to have sports that just like comes very naturally to any educational institute. So we offer multiple sports like swimming, squash, badminton, volleyball, football,
Right.
and so many other, so many other. So yeah.
Right, ma'am. Thank you. Like you said, I think when we start looking at them as one entity, and I truly acknowledge that they go hand in hand. Like Heena ma'am was also saying, you can actually sort of put them together to encourage students to pursue them as well. But ma'am, coming back to you, could you, I mean, share an anecdote perhaps of these times when you were, when you faced perhaps a major setback in your journey of becoming a world number one, as you are? So what were one of the major setbacks that you faced, and how did you, put yourself together, sort of come back up, and then, go back out there to compete? And what would you tell to all of the viewers that we have today? How do they pick themselves back up after they've, been knocked down?
Um, you know, I have lost more matches than I won. Um because that's how sport is, and it teaches you how to be humble, how to analyze what really went wrong, how to pick yourself up and work with your team closely and trust your team to put you back on track. So I can't really pinpoint any major setback that I had. This was a journey where at the end of it, I did become world number one. But it was a journey where I wasn't really, aware that I'm on the path of becoming world number one. I was so focused on the process, that I went to this match, what went wrong, what can I do to make it better? Um, you know, and the whole process is what makes this special. My teammates, my coaches, my physiotherapists, the psychologists, they were there. And for me, the news just came like one day I was going to Amritsar to do something. And I got a call from a journalist that, ma'am, what are your views on becoming world number one? I said, what? So I said, okay, give me 5 minutes. I'll talk to you again. I thought he's mistaken, so I went on the world ranking and saw that I was the world number one. Um, I was doing well. I knew that I was doing well, better than I had ever been, but I never knew that, I'm on path to being world number one. So that is the thing about sport, like how ma'am was saying, that it is an integral part of education. It tells you how to be true to yourself, how to be true to the process, and outcomes will follow. And outcomes actually do not give you that kind of happiness. My medals are something I don't even have on display in my house, you know. None of my trophies are here on display. They are there somewhere in a drawer, like there's a drawer dedicated to my medals. Because, yeah, I I mean, I look at my medals and I become nostalgic and I go back to the time of how I did in that match. But the medals are not something that are dear to me.
Hmm.
What is dear to me is what I went through and the feeling that is there in my heart. I don't need to look at a medal to relive that feeling. I can just close
True.
my eyes and relive it anytime. So, yeah.
I think that's a very beautiful sentiment where you prioritize the process and sort of it's so internalized for you since you've lived the whole thing. But I just
Yeah.
had a small follow-up on what you just said, ma'am. Like you spoke about your peers, your coaches, your physiotherapist, but also your psychologist. So, I mean, could you talk a little bit about how it is essential for even sports people to take care of their mental health in the process? I think if you could just shed a little light on that, how did you, throughout your journey, upkeep your mental wellness and your mental health, and should more sports people be doing it?
Mental health is something that I suffered from after becoming world number one. 2, 3 years later, my performance wasn't going that well, and it had been so many years into sport, and my personal life was just stagnant. I didn't have many friends for so many years because I was always traveling, and whatever friends I had never understood what I was saying about my career or my life. And so it was just a very sort of lonely life, I would say. The mistake that I had made as an athlete was I hadn't maintained a work-life balance, which is very important. As athletes, we are trained and we are sort of pushing ourselves almost like machines, never giving ourselves time to enjoy with the friends, with the family, do things that normal people would take for granted. So I did suffer from depression, and it took me 2 years to actually take therapy and come back stronger. So I have been very open about it because when once I was suffering and going through depression, I thought that maybe it's just me and it's happening to me because as an athlete, I'm supposed to be tough and
Hmm.
never show my weakness and
Right.
actually never have a weakness. And if I have a weakness, then work on it and make it stronger. But the more I started talking to other athletes or ex-players, I realized that everybody has gone through it. It's just that nobody ever spoke out, and that's why I felt so alone. And I
Hmm.
thought that now my career is over. But since then, I have always been talking about it, speaking about it. Anytime anybody has asked me, I would always tell them that everybody goes through it, not just athletes. In fact, people think that athletes don't go through it, but recent studies show that athletes go through it much more for the reasons that I told
Yeah.
you. We are stigmatized to be superhumans and live away from families, from our support system, from our friends for so long, and we are treated as, medal winning machines and not humans by everyone. I mean, the spectators, the
True.
country, the federations, everyone. So it's very important for athletes or anybody else to maintain a work-life balance, to listen to their feelings and emotions, and also their logical side, not just the logical
Yeah.
side all the time. It's important to listen to your emotions and feelings and be in touch with them. And if you feel that you cannot function the way you have been functioning till now, you don't feel like getting up from bed, you don't feel like meeting people, your performance has dropped, your productivity has dropped, you have suicidal thoughts or scary thoughts,
Hmm.
then you must take help. And it works. It really works. It was very difficult for
True.
me to take that first step because that is the toughest uh, thing that you will do, but it really helps.
Thank you so much for sharing that, ma'am. I think, like you said, I think the more people talk about it, the more people stop feeling alone in the process. And to hear it from someone who's, of course, been through the whole journey and then also taken the help and been through the journey of recovery, I think it's going to be very inspiring for a lot of young aspiring sports people to also consider their mental health on their journey to becoming, pro athletes. But coming to my next question, ma'am, which is, of course, slightly different. Recent studies have statistics have also shown that even today, while the participation of women in sports has significantly increased, overall we still see less than 30% of Indian women actually playing sports. So, what are your thoughts on this? Can you highlight some of the gender dynamics in the sports industry? And in your thought, what are the more grassroots changes that can be done to encourage young girls and young women to be in sports?
Um, the problem that girls face in sport is nothing, different than girls facing in pursuing their education. It is the same.
Hmm.
Young girls go through the same problems facing their education and sports. So, if parents do not have enough financial needs, they would always put the boy first, and the education would be given more priority than sports for girls if the means are limited. Then the other thing is the girls get married and
Hmm.
they have to bear children, and that really puts them in a place where they have to sort of take a sabbatical from sport for 1 or 2 years. There's no such thing as maternity leave in sports. I hope you know that.
Right.
If you're working in a company, you can get a maternity leave and come back. But in sports, it's just time against you, and you have to get back with the performance. They're not gonna keep that slot for you.
Right.
So sports is a different thing for women. And I would also like to know if we have a statistics of 30%, what is the statistics of females pursuing education versus females pursuing leadership roles? I think
Right.
everywhere you would see that
Correct.
females are lagging behind males, and the fundamental cause, according to me, is the same. But at the same time, as far as sports is concerned, females do not need any special push. So if we can target schools and colleges, targeting both genders, I think that's perfect. Women in sports do not need anything special to enter sports. Whatever support we need is the same for pursuing education, sports,
Right.
higher studies, everything.
Right, ma'am. Thank you. And Ms. Swami, I'd like to bring you back into the conversation now. To sort of carry on this answer itself as to how educational spaces, schools, colleges, etc., how can they create a healthy culture of sporting for girls especially, but it's students at large from a young age? What can we do better?
Yeah, I think as you know, Hina ma'am had the experience of teachers not supporting. I think that's the first step. It's important to have a culture in school, colleges where the entire fraternity supports the students or learners who are doing good in sports and want to excel in that field. It's very important for the leadership to create such a culture in the academic space, such that the sport students who are pursuing sports are not judged or are not seen as see, very casual. Students are not serious about studies, etc. They're serious about something else, and it's important for us to encourage it. I think another thing, encouraging parents. Sports, when the principal of the school or when the teacher of the school tell the parents कि आपका बच्चा अच्छा कर रहा है, let them pursue the sports, it sort of fits into the psyche of the parents much more than anybody else talking about it. So I think counseling the parents on regular basis and creating a good sports infrastructure is very, very essential. I genuinely feel when a school is investing in a good classroom, in like a high tech classroom with all the fancy boards, etc., it's also important to invest as much amount in the sports facility. The space could be limited, but we can always work out in investing in a particular sport. Like, for example, if a space is limited in a particular school, they can focus on investing in football ground and not on other grounds, example. So things like that are very, 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 very essential. Encouraging girls, boys, it's beyond the gender. I think sports is definitely beyond the gender. There are certain physical limitations, as Heenaman
Correct.
was not limitation, but like a physical characteristics of each gender, which is sort of limiting the journey in the sports. But beyond that, definitely sports should never be biased based on your based on the gender of any student, and that should all be encouraged and made a part of the culture of the academic spaces. Yeah.
Right, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think what you said was quite important. Where as long as there is an active concern and investment being put into upgrade infrastructure and push students towards it, and also given that extra bit of support verbally and emotionally to the students who have the knack and have the talent for it, I think that would help us go a long way. Um, but Hina, ma'am, coming back to you. In 2023, of course, we noticed, like, with the budget that was allocated for youth and sports, we see more than 3,300 crores that have been allotted. Um, do you think every sport or every faction of sports gets benefited equally from this large sum of amount? Is there a sort of disproportionate investment that happens off this budget? And do women's sports still face a sort of deficit when it comes to access to these resources?
Um, when it comes to the budget that is allocated to sports, the budget is allocated according to the probability of winning an Olympic medal for the sport. For example, shooting would have more allocation compared to, um, let's say, something like handball or softball,
Hmm.
because the probability of us winning medals in shooting is much higher. Shooting allocation could be compared to, say, something like wrestling or badminton. So it's all probability because the funds are not unlimited, and it is true for every country and every federation or every sporting body. The funds are always allocated according to the merit, and then highly talented athletes or younger athletes or athletes who are doing well would get more allocation compared to athletes who are not doing that well. So it's a probability game. Um,
Hmm.
and as far as women versus men sports are concerned, the funds are always allocated to the federations. The funds are not
Right.
allocated to a particular athlete. And if that athlete is doing well, so and what you have to understand over here is that women don't compete with men in sports. Women compete with women.
Hmm.
So if my chances of winning are higher in my category, then the funds will be allocated to me versus some other man who is not doing very well compared to other men. So men are
Right.
compared according to their gender, women are compared according to their gender, and the funds are allocated according to probability. Everybody wants an Olympic medal. That is the beauty about sports, that there is no discrimination on the basis of caste, color, gender, age, nothing. This is sports is, I think, the is something still true in this world where even a father can't just hand over his money to his son. Everybody has to work hard to get there. Yes, the only thing that women athletes do lack in is in some sports is the spectator friendliness. For
Hmm.
example, tennis players are female players are paid much less compared to men because more spectators go and see men tennis matches. Similarly, golfers, the so it's you guys, you don't come. So the spectators need to be there. So what we need is support from the public. The government is
Hmm.
doing its bit.
Hmm.
I think that's wonderful to hear, and of course, that's a good note to everyone watching as well. So please tune in. But beyond that, also, I think the takeaway is that when you said sports remains a sort of agnostic platform where it's only skill, hard work, and sort of practice, dedication that can send you ahead. And those are core values that anyone needs to sort of imbibe. But speaking of sports in the future, we have an Olympics coming up next year. And the last one was sort of pushed here and there because of COVID, and I think it was a very different Olympic experience for spectators, definitely, but I'm sure for players as well. Um, how do you think sporting has changed after the pandemic? Now that everything's coming back to normal, is the sporting sense of normalcy also restored? And going ahead to next year, what are you excited about? And what is sports looking like post-COVID?
Sports has sort of normalized post-COVID. Now there's absolutely nothing, and things are picking up. The only thing is that athletes are now struggling with 3 years of an Olympic cycle, which used to be 4 years. So we do have a lot of matches and picking up post-COVID. Some of them have had COVID a couple of times, and that's where things are. Indian shooting team is doing well, but the qualifications will be starting this year. So let's see and cheer for our athletes next year.
I'm sure I promise we'll all be there frontline cheering on our Indian athletes as we go into next year. But for all of these athletes, of course, we need qualified coaches. We need, like we were talking about, a strong support system as well. But across several sports at all levels, we notice there's a huge deficit of coaches. There's a massive shortage. How does one bridge this gap? What are some of the gaps that you've noticed? How can we sort of bridge this supply demand ratio when it comes to coaches or quality coaches?
Okay,
That is.
I think anything that you want to change in your country or in the society, number one step is education for everything. Anything that you want to change in your society, it comes with education because education is something which can be passed on, and it's not like it's a resource which is used and finished. Once you have educated your society, it stays at that level and it is passed on, and the whole society is elevated. So if you ask me, why don't we have coaches? Do we have any degrees for coaches? No, we don't. Are there any colleges giving certified degrees to be a coach in shooting or to be a coach in football and giving them the correct kind of knowledge, giving them knowledge of sports science? No, we don't. So what kind of coaches do we have? People who have just learned whatever they could learn on the field, and they may not have a solid educational background themselves. They would not they would be coming from very humble backgrounds and probably have just finished 10th grade and were so passionate about sports that they started pursuing sports. And after they finished sports, now they don't know what else to do than coach. That's the state of
Hmm.
coaches today. So, क्या निकलेगा इसमें से? So till you do not give support at the ground level, till we do not educate our coach, till they do not have the financial stability, we cannot expect to have world-class coaches. We may have world-class athletes, and we will always be calling coaches from outside to train our talent and be spending lots and lots of dollars for foreign support. But till we do not
Hmm.
have the system over here, even sports schools, if a school has uh, infrastructure to for the athletes and for the students, why not use the same infrastructure in the evening and have classes for the local coaches? Um, you know,
Right.
it's a model and nobody has looked into it. Maybe ma'am can look into it and start educating the coaches and give them certified degrees, and so that they can show their degree and demand a good salary. And then once you start this system of your coaches being financially independent, more and more people will want to be coaches and not think
Right.
of it as time waste. अभी आजकल time waste लगता है ना लोगों को. People think मैं कोच बन के क्या करूंगा, उससे तो I can do some other degree and do something else. That's the sad story.
I appreciate that with giving us the ground reality of the problem, you also gave us a very good solution as to how this bridge can actually be gapped. Um, so thank you for that. Now, before we go towards the end of this segment, one last question is to all of the aspiring athletes that, of course, you deeply inspired watching this session today. What would you say are three qualities that any aspiring athlete must inculcate on their journey to becoming a pro athlete?
Number one, humility, because humility helps you keep your head down and keep working hard, and not take your wins to your heads and to your head, and also not take your losses to your heart. Humility is very important. the number two thing is patience, because you may be doing the right thing and you may be doing whatever is needed, but it takes time in sport. You have to work on every little thing with your team. And if you have the humility and the patience, the third thing to have is perseverance, to keep doing what you're doing. So I think that's true for anything. Humility, patience, and perseverance can take you anywhere and will help you maintain that level for a very long time. It's very easy to be on the top, but very difficult to maintain it, because some people don't have humility, some people don't have what it takes to keep persevering, or some people do not have the patience and they just want to enjoy the moment.
Right, ma'am. I think that's a very valuable lesson, especially in a day and age where self-gratification is constantly increasing, where, attention spans have come down to 30 seconds and validation is constantly seeked. I think these are a few values even we try to impart with our delegates when we conference across 220 cities and 35 countries. These are a few things even we try to reinforce with them, the things of hard work, commitment, humility, dedication. Now, coming to the last segment, a little bit of fun. Of course, we don't have a huge hamper, but we like to do a small rapid fire round where I'll just list out a few words to you and you can share the first thought that comes to your mind, the first word, the first phrase that comes to your mind with this. Just a little fun before we wrap up the session for today. The first word I'd like to present to you is shooting.
Hard.
The next one is the Olympics.
Dream.
The dream. The next one is your favorite food, your comfort food.
Pasta.
Well, lovely. Similar. The next one is the word sports.
Sports. Ever going.
Ever going. A role model.
None. I have no role models.
But you're a role model to all of us. I just want to say that. The next
Yeah,
one is
but
youth, young
everybody is
people.
dealt a different set of cards in their life. So learn from everybody, but don't try to copy anyone, because what they go through is completely different.
True.
But yes, keep an open mind and keep learning.
I think that's a wonderful piece of advice. To the next word, which is youth.
Youth. Underrated, I would say. Now that I'm 35, I feel youth is underrated. I want to be youthful again.
I think that's a wonderful sentiment. Samya ma'am, to include you now, before we go to the last few words, what are your thoughts on education?
Is it rapid fire?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Education is it's the way of learning, way of becoming. Yeah.
Sports in schools,
Essential.
essential. And now to the last two words, which I'll ask both of you together. Heena ma'am, what comes to mind when I say India?
Youthful.
I agree, we're a very young country.
Yes.
Miss Samya, what about you when we say India?
A pride, a sense of
Right,
pride. Yeah.
true. And the last word to both of you, we'll start with Heena ma'am. When I say I.I.M.U.N, our organization, what comes to your mind?
Actually, I thought you were saying I.I.M.U.N to the last one, because my phone got disconnected. So youthful is for you, I.I.M.U.N, and for India is, uh, sort of my employer, I would say. I work for India.
I think that's a wonderful sentiment. Miss Samya, I.I.M.U.N.
I think Instagram Live. Yeah. That's how we get
I think
connected to
that's
such
wonderful
wonderful
because I think all of us come together on this platform. So I think that's a wonderful way to end this session. But thank you so much, Ms. Soumya. But also many thank yous, Ms. Heena, for coming and joining us today.